All glories to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya Lila, Chapter 24, Text 335. Shri Murti Lakshana Ara Salagrama Lakshana Krishna Kricha Yatra Krishna Murti Darashana. The characteristics of the deities should be discussed, as well as the characteristics of the Salagram Shila. You should also discuss visiting the deities in the temple and touring holy places like Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka. 336. Namamahi Madhama Pradadhure Varjana Vaishnava Lakshana Seva Paradha Kandana. You should glorify the holy name and explain that one must carefully give up offenses when chanting the holy name. You should also describe the symptoms of Vaishnava and explain that one must give up or nullify all kinds of seva aparad, offenses in deity worship. Purport. The devotee should always be very careful not to commit the 10 offenses when chanting Hare Krishna mantra. If a devotee very strictly follows the methods of deity worship, he will naturally and quickly become a pure Vaishnava. A pure Vaishnava has unflinching faith in the Lord, and he does not deviate at all. He is always engaged in perfect deity worship. One should also note the specific offenses against deity worship. These are mentioned in the Skanda Purana, Avanti Khand, spoken by Vyasadeva himself. One should liquidate all kinds of offenses. The Shalagram Shila should be worshipped with tulsi, where a sufficient quantity of tulsi leaves are available. Worship of the Salagram Shila should be introduced in all ISKCON temples. Salagram Shila is the form of the Lord's mercy. To worship the deity with the 64 items mentioned may be a difficult job, but the Lord has become so small that anyone in any temple can carefully handle deity worship simply by performing the same activities with the Salagram Shila. There are 32 offenses to the deity that should be avoided. 1. One should not enter the temple in a vehicle. Shoes and slippers should be removed before entering the temple. 2. One should offer obeisances as soon as he sees the deity. 3. One should enter the temple after taking a bath. In other words, one should be very clean. 4. One should not offer obeisances to the Lord with one hand. 5. One should not circumambulate demigods before the deities. 6. One should not spread his legs before the deity. 7. One should not sit down before the deity with his legs crossed, nor should one touch his legs with his hands. 8. One should not lie down before the deity. 9. One should not eat before the deity. 10. One should not speak lies before the deity. 11. One should not cry before the deity. 14. One should not deal with others before the deity. 15. One should not utter harsh words before the deity. 16. One should not cover himself with a blanket. 17. One should not talk enviously of others before the deity. 18. One should not praise others before the deity. 19. One should not use slang before the deity. 20. One should not pass air before the deity. 21. One should not neglect the 64 items of deity worship. 22. One should not eat anything not offered to the deity. 23. One should not neglect offering seasonal fruits as soon as they are available. 24. One should always offer fresh, untouched fruit to the deity. 25. One should not sit with his back toward the deity. 26. One should not offer obeisances to others before the deity. 27. One should not sit near the deity without taking the spiritual master's permission. 28. One should not be proud to hear himself praised before the deity. 29. One should not blaspheme the demigods. 30. One should not be unkind to others before the deity. 31. One should observe all festivals in the temple. 32. One should not fight or quarrel before the deity. 337. Shankha jala gandha pushpa dhupadi lakshana japastuti parikrama dandavat bandana. The items of worship, such as water, conch shell, flowers, incense, and lamp, should be described. You should also mention chanting softly, offering prayers, circumambulating, and offering obeisances. All these should be carefully described. Purport. All these are mentioned in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. The 8th Vilas of that book should be consulted as far as possible. 338. Purasharchana vidhi Krishna prashada bhojana anvidita tyaga vaishnava nindari varjana. Other items you should describe are the method of performing Purasharchana, taking Krishna prasadam, giving up unoffered food, and not blaspheming the Lord's devotees. Purport. Regarding the Vaishnav Ninda, see Madhya Lila 15.261. 339. Sadhu Lakshana Sadhu Sangha Sadhu Sevana Asatsanga Chaga Sri Bhagavata Shravana. You should describe the symptoms of a devotee, how to associate with the devotees, how to satisfy a devotee by rendering service, how to give up the association of non-devotees. You should also explain the value of regularly hearing the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. 340. Dina Kritya Paksha Kritya Ekadasyadi Vidharana Masakritya Janmastamyadi Vidhi Vicharana. You should describe the ritualistic duties to be performed every day, and you should also describe the fortnightly duties, especially how to observe the fortnightly Ekadasi fast. You should also describe the duties to be observed every month, and you should especially describe the observance of ceremonies like Janmastami, Ramanavami, and Nrsimha Chaturdasi. 341. Ekadasi Janmastami Ramanadvadasi Shri Ramanavami Ara Nrsimha Chaturdasi. Ekadasi Janmastami Vamanadvadasi Ramanavami and Nrsimha Chaturdasi. All these should be described. 342. Eisabe vidha chaga avidha karana ekarane dosha kaile bhaktira lambana. You should recommend the avoidance of mixed ekadasi and the performance of pure ekadasi. You should also describe the fault in not observing ekadasi. One should be very careful as far as these items are concerned. If one is not careful, one will be negligent in executing devotional service. 343. Sarvatra pramanadide purana vachana Shri Murti Vishnu Mandira karana lakshana. Whatever you say about Vaishnava behavior, the establishment of Vaishnava temples and deities, and everything else should be supported by evidence from the Puranas. 344. Samanya sadachara ara Vaishnava achara kartavya kartavya sabha smartavya vahara. You should give general and specific descriptions of the behavior and activities of a Vaishnava. You should outline things that are to be done and things that are not to be done. All this should be described as regulations and etiquette. 345. Ehi sankshepe sutra kahi lundigdharashana yabetu milikiba Krishna karabe spurana. I have thus given a synopsis of the Vaishnava regulative principles. I have given this in brief just to give you a little direction. When you write on this subject, Krishna will help you by spiritually awakening you. Purport. One cannot write on spiritual matters without being blessed by Krishna and the disciplic succession of gurus. The blessings of the authorities are one's power of attorney. One should not try to write anything about Vaishnava behavior and activities without being authorized by superior authorities. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.2. Evam param parapraptam imam rajarshayo vidhu. 346. Ehita kahiru prabhura sanatane prashada yanhara shravane chitera kandeya vashada. Thus I have narrated Lord Chaitanya's mercy upon Sanatana Goswami. When one hears these topics, one's heart will be cleansed of all contamination. 347. Nijagrante karnapura vishtara kariya sanatane prabhura prashada rakiyache likiya. The authorized poet Kavi Karnapura has written a book named Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya. This book tells how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu blessed Sanatana Goswami with his specific mercy. 348. Godandrasya sabha vibhushana manischakva yarudam shriyam rupasya graja isha eva tarnim vairagya lakshmim dadhe antar bhakti rasena purna hridayo bhaye vadhutukruti sabhailai pitam maha sara eva prati pradas tadidam. Srila Sanatana Goswami, the elder brother of Srila Rupa Goswami, was a most important minister in the government of Hussain Shah, the ruler of Bengal, and he was considered a most brilliant gem in that assembly. He possessed all the opulences of a royal position, but he gave up everything just to accept the youthful goddess of renunciation. Although he externally appeared to be a mendicant who had renounced everything, he was filled with the pleasure of devotional service within his heart. Thus he can be compared to a deep lake covered with moss. He was the object of pleasure for all the devotees who knew the science of devotional service. Purport. This and the following two verses are from Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya 9.34, 35, and 38. Tam sanatanam upagatam akshnur drishta matram ati matra dayadraha alinga parigyata dhurbyam sanku kampam ata champaka gura. As soon as Sanatana Goswami arrived in front of Lord Chaitanya, the Lord, seeing him, became merciful to him. The Lord, who was the complexion of golden champaka flower, opened his arms and embraced him while expressing great affection. Kalena Vrindavan Keli Varta Kalena Vrindavan Keli Varta Utetitam Kyapaitam Vishisha Kripam Vritena Bhisheka Devas Tatraiva Rupam Cha Sanatanam Cha. In the course of time, the transcendental news of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan was almost lost. To enunciate explicitly those transcendental pastimes, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami with the nectar of his mercy to carry out this work in Vrindavan. 351. Ehita kahilun sanatane prabhura prashada yanhara shravane chitera kande abashada. I have thus explained the mercy bestowed on Sanatana Goswami by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If one hears this description, all moroseness in the heart will diminish. 352. Krishnera svarupa ganera sakala haya jnana vidhiraga marge sadhana bhakti radhidhana. By reading these instructions to Sanatana Goswami, one will become fully aware of Lord Krishna's various expansions in the process of devotional service according to the regulative principles and spontaneous love. Thus everything can be fully known. Krishna, text 353. Krishna prema bhakti rasa siddhanta vihara shravane bhakta janena sabanta. By reading these instructions, a pure devotee can understand love of Krishna, the mellows of devotional service, and the conclusion of devotional service. Everyone can understand all these things to their ultimate end by studying these instructions. 354. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Advaita Charana Yanra Prana Dana Sei Paya E Dana. The conclusion of these instructions can be known to one whose life and soul are the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaita Prabhu. 355. Sri Rupa Raghunatha Padeyara Asa Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya Krishna Dasa. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya Lila, chapter 24, describing the Atmarama verse and the Lord's mercy upon Sanatana Goswami. Thus ends our reading for today. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.